Hi, and welcome back to Meet Your Body. Today, we are talking about my own journey with my pelvic floor. Now, I've talked about this in many different places. So I've had pieces of this everywhere. I will have some links below. I have a free prolapse resource guide if that applies to you. I have many exercise videos that are safe for prolapse. I have a 4-week prolapse safe exercise program. And again, podcast episodes all about prolapse, surgery, how to decide if you might need surgery, my surgery recovery, so many things. So I want to have those resources for you. So I'll have links below. But today I thought I would put kind of all of it in place because I haven't talked a lot about, I'm at 6 years post surgery. So I get a lot of people asking how I feel now, how I feel that long after having surgery. So I'm going to kind of give you an entire review today. I'll put it all in one place, and make sure you stick around for next week also, where we have a pelvic floor specialist, a DPT, doctor of physical therapy, pelvic floor specialist coming in, and we're going to have a really great conversation to answer a lot of your questions around exercise and pelvic floor specifically. So my journey with my pelvic floor. I have been a physical therapist for 25 years, and I first got pregnant when I was 35. So I'd been a PT for 15 years, and I thought I knew a lot. And I worked out during my pregnancy. I had a completely normal pregnancy, no problems whatsoever. And I had no pelvic floor issues before my pregnancy, or even during, that I would say. The only thing in my history that I had was something called a LEAP procedure that I had in my early 20s because I had precancerous cells in my cervix. So I had something called a LEAP procedure where they scrape that out and it forms scar tissue. But again, that was not even in my mind. Okay. I got pregnant at 35, and completely normal pregnancy. And the birth was tough. It was very long. I had a 40-hour labor. It took a very long time for me to get to 10 centimeters. And I say that about the LEAP procedure just to say that I found out later that that's most likely why, because of the scar tissue in my cervix. I just would not dilate. So I hung out at like 8 and 9 centimeters forever. So I had a very long labor. And then I had a very long pushing experience. I pushed for 4 hours, which is really the max that they'll let you go. So I pushed for 4 hours in close communication with my doctor this whole time. And at one point, he talked to me and said, I'm going to give you one more push. You get one more. And if this girl does not come out, we are doing a C-section because your body is at max capacity. And he said, I'm going to use a vacuum to help for this last push. And I said, okay. And after that long in labor, being able to see her head, I was determined not to then have to have a C-section also. So one more push, vacuum. Our daughter was here. Beautiful, amazing, healthy baby girl. I was actually fine. No extreme tearing, anything like that. And I left the hospital with, normal instructions. Don't exercise for 6 weeks. Like I said, I was a physical therapist, thought I knew what I was doing. No problem, right? No problem. In the first week after giving birth, I was home and I thought I should probably take a peek down there, see how things were going, see how things were healing. And I did. And I saw something I did not expect to see. And I went straight to the computer and Googled pink golf ball hanging out of vagina. That is what I Googled because I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea what I was seeing or what I was feeling, but that was it. And it came up bladder prolapse. Called my doctor, saw him the next day. This is my OB. He said, oh yeah, you have a mild prolapse. Here's a pessary. We can talk about a pessary. I didn't even know what that was. Here's a pessary. We can talk about it. You might want some pelvic floor PT. It'll be fine. Like that's literally what I was told. It'll be fine. No big deal. Sent on my way. And I proceeded to follow those guidelines of no exercise for 6 weeks and then do whatever you want at 6 weeks. So at 6 weeks, I was sprinting up and down the cul-de-sac, trying to get back into shape as we tend to do, thinking I was doing the best thing for my body. And I ended up seeing a pelvic floor PT and started to learn a little more about prolapse, quickly realizing there's very little information out there. And what is out there can be very scary and very frustrating and very confusing. I mean, a lot of times we're told, don't do anything ever again. You're in trouble forever, right? You can't exercise ever again. You can never run ever again. I knew that that wasn't going to be me. So I started to kind of put together a plan for myself, what I possibly could do, what I couldn't do. I did all the research. I dove headfirst into prolapse, and it was one of the biggest gateways for me into women's health physical therapy, actually, as a practitioner, realizing, yes, with my history of endometriosis, but really in this experience, we are given no information. We're given no information as women about what we really need to be doing to protect our bodies during pregnancy, and especially in that postpartum time. And then what it just might mean, the high incidence of prolapse when you have a long labor, when you push for 4 hours, and when there's a vacuum used, there's a high incidence of prolapse. And I was not given any indication that that might happen. So that was my introduction to it. I had, again, pelvic floor PT. I was doing all the things and learning, going to workshops myself to become a better practitioner. Went through the process of learning to exercise and move my body with a prolapse. If you watch any of the first really 7 years of Jessica Valant videos in Unlimited and on YouTube, you are watching me teach with a prolapse, because I had one. I had a severe prolapse and a severe bulge that entire time. So I did not let it hold me back. Okay. But also I was trying to do it in the smartest way possible. I was not just pushing through it, trying to force myself to do it. I was learning everything I could about how to actually exercise with pelvic floor dysfunction. I was learning about my body during that time. And I wasn't really considering surgery necessarily, knowing it might be in my future, but I hadn't thought much about it, knowing we were trying for a second baby, knowing I wanted to be pregnant again. I didn't want to make any choices until after the second pregnancy. And I want to say this now for anyone listening, because I had some of the same thoughts. There is no indication and no research that a second pregnancy will be hard on the baby if you have a prolapse. Okay. I want you to hear me say that. That typically is not a worry whatsoever. It can be hard on your body, right? It can be hard on your body. And there's a possibility that you might want to consult with your doctor about what kind of birth you will have. Like you might be choosing a C-section versus a vaginal birth, those kind of things. But don't think at all that a prolapse is going to limit you in getting pregnant the second time. I had a hard time getting pregnant, but it's because of my endometriosis. It did not have anything to do with the prolapse whatsoever. So we did go through IVF. We went through a long journey getting pregnant the second time. But again, my prolapse was not a concern whatsoever in getting pregnant. So we did get pregnant with our son. And that pregnancy, again, completely fine. No problem. The prolapse, when you are pregnant, your joints and your muscles loosen. So yeah, prolapse got a little worse. I'm not going to tell you it didn't. It did, but I was fully aware of that and I was fully prepared for it because I wanted a second baby so badly. My second birth was much faster. It was about a 14-hour labor, I believe, and 20 minutes of pushing. So compared to my first, it was so much faster. It was cake. But yes, it made the prolapse a little worse because that is what it'll do. A C-section was not something I considered necessarily. That was just, I just didn't. I think I knew my prolapse was already really bad. If I didn't have a bad prolapse still, I definitely might have considered a C-section to help protect my pelvic floor more. But I was so far in it that I just went ahead with vaginal birth. And so for me, I just want to tell you about what symptoms felt like during that time, during that 7-year stretch. I had a bulge. Okay. So I also want to reiterate, I had not seen a specialist yet, and I'm going to get to that. So I couldn't even grade myself. But my understanding was that after 2 rounds of pelvic floor physical therapy, my understanding was I had a bladder prolapse, so a cystocele, and it was grade just about the highest grade because of the bulge. So my symptoms were mostly bulge, which made things uncomfortable. Yes, it made everything doable. Sex was not a problem whatsoever. Exercise was hard in that it could make the bulge worse, but I was just really careful. I didn't do much jumping. I didn't do much running whatsoever, but I did weights. I was really careful in how I exercised, that I would give myself rests. Like I would do something standing, then lay on my back to rest my pelvic floor, then something standing again. I did not have incontinence, but I went to the bathroom constantly, probably 30 times a day. I was peeing, always doing that last pee before bed. I always had to pee. Always. But my biggest symptoms really were that bulge and how that was getting in the way of me just being comfortable. So 2 years after our son was born, when I was done breastfeeding, I saw a urogynecologist. I finally, after 7 years, saw a urogynecologist. And if you've listened to my videos, you will know my number one recommendation. Well, one of my top recommendations is to see a urogynecologist early in your journey. They are the specialists, okay? OBGYNs are helpful. They are not pelvic floor specialists whatsoever. A urogynecologist is a pelvic floor specialist to help you understand prolapse, incontinence, bladder issues. So I finally saw a urogynecologist, had testing done, and turns out I had bladder prolapse, uterine prolapse, and rectal prolapse, cystocele, rectocele, uterine prolapse, all the above, grade 3 and 4 throughout. When you have grade 3 and 4, when there's a bulge happening, that typically is not going to be reversed. So grade 1 and 2 pelvic floor PT is your option. Like that is fantastic and management. And I would not recommend surgery for grades 1 and 2 because you can manage it in so many other ways. Grade 3 and 4, it starts to become a personal choice that yes, pelvic floor PT is still really important to learn how to manage it, but you're not going to typically reverse that bulge. The tissue is too stretched. So for me, it was an option of, do I want surgery or do I not? And that, again, I go through into details in previous podcast episodes about how I chose surgery, why I chose surgery, the type of surgery I had. But surgery was what I ended up choosing. So 6 years ago now, I had what's called a sacrocolpoplexy, which helps lift the pelvic floor. I had a hysterectomy to remove the uterus, and I had vaginal wall, anterior and posterior vaginal wall repair. A lot done. And I've had a lot of surgeries, and it was definitely one of the tougher ones. I would say, I've said for years it was my hardest surgery. But when I had my mastectomy and my drains and all of that done a year and a half ago, I decided that was the hardest one. So I'm going to put my prolapse repair number 2, not the hysterectomy piece. That one wasn't so rough necessarily. The prolapse repair, I'm just honest that it is a tough surgery. Also, I have not ever regretted it. All right. So for me, I woke up without a bulge. That felt like a miracle. I have not had a bulge since then. I've not experienced a bulge. Also, surgery doesn't 100% fix everything that you had going on. When I had pelvic floor dysfunction for 7 years, I don't suddenly wake up without it. I have a different layer of pelvic floor dysfunction. I still consider myself having pelvic floor dysfunction. I have to manage and help myself daily. And truly, it is still on the front of my mind. A lot of times I exercise and work out. I'm thinking, am I protecting my pelvic floor? Is this okay? Am I going to bulge again? There's a lot of PTSD, I think, involved when you've had a bulge and pelvic floor dysfunction for that long. So I want to recognize that if that is you, because it's definitely on my mind all the time. Also, I am doing the exact exercises I need to do daily to protect my pelvic floor. I like to trail run. If you follow me, you know that. It's one of my happiest places for exercise and just for myself out in the sun on trails. Not very long. I go 30 to 45 minutes. And even that, I will manage. I can do it once a week. That would be max. If I do it more than that, I find my pelvic floor gets sore, fatigued. I will leak more urine. It just gets really tired very easily. So for me, it's deciding what are my priorities. So now, 6 years after surgery, where am I? Because that's what I kind of want to tell you about. That. What does it look like this long after surgery? Because we are all different. So as I said, I have never regretted having surgery, ever. Also, it's hard for me to say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did it, because I kind of wish I never had to do it. I wish it wasn't even an option, that I had to consider it. It's a lot. And I do not think everybody needs it in any shape or form. You have to decide if the risks and what you have to go through in rehab for surgery are worth it for you for what it might help, right? That risk reward. For me, I was 40, how old was I? 41, I think. I was 41 or 42 when I had it done. 42, I think, when I had my surgery. I was still very active. I was teaching all the time. I had a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So that was something to consider. I mean, it was a lot. You can't lift for a long period of time afterwards. So there was a lot of factors. For me, the possibility, the idea of not having a bulge again, of being able to kind of start my exercise from a fresh slate, of not having it on the front of my mind all the time. Also knowing as I got older and my estrogen decreased, the bulge was most likely going to get worse as that tissue lessened. All of those things led me to know at that age that I wanted to have surgery. But also I had lived with it for 7 years. Like, a lot of that is I had done every piece I could. I had done the pessary. I had done the pelvic floor PT. I had done the management. Like, I had done just about every piece out there. So I could go in knowing I've tried it all. I would never tell anyone have surgery right away by any means, because you want to know you have tried every conservative route before you get there. Like, I really went in with that thought that I have done everything I can. I am mentally prepared. I'm physically prepared. And I'm going to really commit myself to rehab afterwards. And so that's what I've done for 6 years. And it took a full year after that surgery for me to really feel comfortable in my body again, to kind of feel like, okay, this body's mine. I think I know how to move in it. And it took another year after that, so 2 years after surgery, for me to really feel freedom in exercise, meaning I felt like I could try whatever I wanted and I could be safe. I felt really comfortable knowing what I should say no to. It felt fun to move again. I wasn't scared to move. It took 2 full years after surgery for me to get to that point. So now, symptoms I feel. What's funny is sitting here, I feel a little soreness in my pelvic floor. I'm also hyper aware of it. But right now, personally, I'm going through a little bit of an endometriosis flare. When that happens, my hormones change, my pelvic floor pain changes, and so I am more aware of it. So what does that mean? Does it mean I go to fear? No, that's not helpful for me. It means that I go back to, okay, am I doing the exercises that I should be doing? Am I protecting my pelvic floor? Maybe this week I don't go on that trail run. Maybe this week I change up what I do a little bit. I don't stop, but I listen to my body and know what phase I am in. And if it needs to be more of a pelvic floor rest week, where maybe I focus on seated exercises when I'm doing all of my weights, as opposed to standing exercises when I'm doing my weights. Those are the questions that I kind of ask, that I'm always going through. I pee a lot less during the day than I did. As I said, it was upwards of 30 times. And I know that because I had to write it down before my surgery. My surgeon wanted to know. So I had to write it down. That's how I know. So I'm down much more from that. Does it mean it all went away? No. I still pee more than the average person, for sure. But that too, I work on. I have a video all about how to urinate less at night. I follow those instructions. I work on bladder training. I work really specifically on that, doing my pelvic floor exercises, everything I told you. There's a lot of lifestyle management techniques, such as if I am going to be standing all day, let's say we're moving, okay, and I'm lifting furniture and I'm having to stand all day, the next day needs to be more of a pelvic floor rest day. It's Pilates on the mat and not like another heavy day of lifting weights. when I say management, lifestyle management, that's what I mean. I am aware of lifting. So after my surgery, I have a lifelong restriction of not lifting more than 50 pounds. And so that's what I do. So to lift heavy for my legs, I lay down on my back at the gym and do the leg press machine. I'm not putting more and more and more. I'm not putting 75 pounds on a bar and squatting a bar because of pelvic floor. Am I squatting 45 pounds? Yeah, I am. Because again, I have worked really hard over 7 years to know how to do that safely. And that feels really safe and it feels comfortable on my pelvic floor. So that's how I exercise. You guys have seen me do it. And that is honestly how I do it, with awareness that I am not jumping rope ever. I've tried it and it's not pretty. I don't jump rope. Can't do it. Like there's certain things I know I can't do. And so I feel safe in my body saying, no, I'm not going to do those things. Yes, I'm going to do this. You guys know I lift heavy weights. I do my trail runs once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Those kind of things I am still comfortable doing because I've trained and I've learned how to do it. And if you're asking, how do I do it, Jessica? Tell me. Again, I'm going to have resources below. Okay, check those out. I have an entire list of ways to exercise safely with a prolapse, and then listen next week with our specialist all about how to exercise with your pelvic floor, because I want you to hear me say it is so important. It is vital that you don't let fear around your pelvic floor stop you from working out and exercising. All right, don't let it stop you. And I know there are voices out there saying that don't ever squat again with pelvic floor dysfunction. That's not true. Scientifically, anatomically, it's actually not true that you shouldn't do that. But also, it's not functional and it's not helpful. We squat all day. We squat getting on and off the toilet. So for you to be told to never squat again is not supporting you and empowering you to live your life independently. We know squatting is tied to longevity and our lifespan. And yes, there are ways to do it safely with pelvic floor dysfunction. I promise you. And that's my biggest message here, is not only giving you kind of my timeline and a little bit about where I am now with it, but it's just to tell you not to be afraid of movement. Yes, you need to seek out help from professionals. Again, pelvic floor PT is vital. I do one-on-one virtual consults. I'll have a link to that below. I can talk you through exercise programs, specific things to do every day to help build your confidence in movement. But please don't stop moving. We just want to make sure you're doing it safely and you're teaching your pelvic floor how to move with the rest of your body. That's what your pelvic floor does. It should be a system that works with the rest of your body, and we can help you do that. So that's where I am now. What does it look like for me in the future? I will keep doing what I need to manage it. I will go back to pelvic floor PT if I feel the need to in the future. I feel comfortable with where I am right now. I'm not letting myself be afraid of movement. And also I'm aware that, yeah, there is an incidence of recurrence. It could happen. I'm not going to let that thought hold me back. I'm not going to let that thought scare me. And I'm also going to have awareness of it so that I am always working with my body in partnership. And if and when that ever comes, I will face it. Then I will cross that bridge if it comes. But it doesn't stop me from doing what I can with my body right now. Again, not forcing it to do something it can't, but holding its hand, working with it in partnership, trying new things, finding the plan that works for me, progressing as I'm able, in always, in movement, in breath, all of the things. I hope that helps. Check out all the links below. As always, I promise you, you are not alone. And I promise you are stronger than you think. All right, I'll talk to you soon.